money like cashier. Get the money like a cashier. Customer, clientele. I was broke, that was last year. Getting money like cashier. Get the money like a cashier. Benjamin, nothing less. I was broke, that was last year. Don't change on me. I never switched up. Been down since day one. Stay social. People change on me.
Hello and welcome to DBT Live.
Hey.
Welcome.
I'm Stefania Gallegos.
I'm Hashim Coates, also known as Hashade.
Michael Carter, aka the Paper Boy, and we have another special guest today. Can you introduce yourself, sir?
He's Shamsid-Deen.
Thank you. Welcome. And we got two producers today. We got Jaden and Mr. Ivy in the background, so we should have a very interesting show.
Jaden as in your child?
Yes, as in Jaguar McQueen. Anywho, hold on, let me see.
So Mr. Shamsid-Deen is district attorney in Denver. And so we have him on the show to talk with us about some Denver district attorney isms.
Okay.
Isms.
First things first, go ahead and give us a little background on you, man. I don't want to give you your resume. You tell me what it is.
So where do we start? So go ahead. Where do you want me to start? So I'm originally from Portland, Oregon, but I've been in Colorado long enough to claim it as my partial home, at least. Went to CSU up in Fort Collins for undergrad, then went to DU Law with Carter and a lot of other people who have went on to bigger things, such as being DAs and county commissioners and quite a few judges from our class. Then went to the Civil Rights Division at Dora, did that for 3 years, and then decided to go into the courtroom. So I became a deputy district attorney, and that's what I've been doing for the past 8 years. Now I'm doing financial crimes, so felony financial crimes in the city and county of Denver. But I've done a little bit of everything.
One of the reasons we wanted to have you, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on here, like I said, you, and we understand the name of the show is Dope Black Thoughts. And so you have a different perspective of being, most of the people that we went to school with became criminal defense attorneys on this side, the people of color. You had a different perspective. You had a different path. Talk to me about being at Dora, though.
That was good. At Dora, what I did was I was investigating discrimination claims in employment, public accommodations in housing, mainly employment. So when people, got fired and stuff, or they weren't hired for jobs they were qualified, and they felt it was based on a protected class. Most of the time it was race. They could file a claim with the state alleging discrimination, and so we would investigate those. That was pretty interesting, but I really wasn't using a lot of my legal skills because I had interned at the public defender's office with Carter actually for a bit in the 18th Judicial District in Arapahoe. So I had a taste of the courtroom during law school, but then after I graduated, I really wasn't using my legal skills. And so, but Dora was a good stop, investigating discrimination. A lot of the cases were righteous, but at the end of the day, if we did find discrimination, we would just forward it on to the Attorney General's office, and then they would take up the courtroom aspect of it as far as the litigation. So we kind of passed off all of our work to the AG's office. So I kind of got tired of that after 3 years.
Back then, do you remember? Actually, we had, I think we had Mr. Weiser on a couple of weeks ago. Do you remember working? He was the Attorney General then, but what was your experience working with the Attorney General? Or the Attorney General's office?
Yeah, we had like a liaison, if you will, to I can't remember what their correspondent unit was, but we would meet monthly with the AG's office and present our cases. And there's a committee in the state too. Kind of like, I think their actual title might be Civil Rights Commission, but there's a committee that reviews the cases also before we hand it off to the AGs, and they would sign off on it. But we would meet once a month with the Attorney General representative on our cases, but we didn't work hand in hand. Door and the AG's office. We didn't, we just kind of once a month met and we would turn over our stuff to them basically, but we didn't have a hand in hand type relationship. It was arm's length.
I guess moving from Dora to talk to us how you ended up at the district attorney's office.
Well, like I said, I kind of got tired of handing off our work. So I was like, I want to see that. I want to get in the courtroom really. And, that reminds me, I think because Carter mentioned it, a lot of our classmates from law school, Black classmates, went to the defense side. And I think there really is this kind of expectation that if you're Black, you get a law degree, that you're going to do some kind of defense. You're going to go to a public defender's office, or you're going to do some kind of defense. I did some of that at the public defender's office when I was an intern there, but I felt like I wanted to get back to that. I wanted to get back into the courtroom, into the criminal side of things, not do civil. So that's how I ended up at the DA's office. I just decided one day that, hey, I need to get back in the courtroom. I need to start using the skills that I think I have, that I went to school for, that I interned for, just get back in the criminal courtroom. So, reached out to some friends of mine, ended up getting an interview in Denver. I also interviewed in Adams County. They didn't hire me, which ended up, being a blessing because I ended up like 2 weeks later getting hired by Denver. So they've been there ever since 2012.
Okay. What made you decide to get back into the courtroom via being a prosecutor? Could you have not gone back to the public defender's office and gotten back into the courtroom?
Well, I could have, but I had learned since, when I was interning with Carter in the 18th district, that's when Carol Chambers was the DA out in Aurora, and she was heavy-handed. So when we were interns, we would just get beat up. We would get good cases and stuff, as far as defendants and defending people, but the DAs were tough. There's only a few DAs that you would really work with to the point where you'd be able to talk through cases. The DAs were really, you had a lot of discretion out there, but they were heavy-handed, and there were some mandates that we felt from Carolyn Chambers to take certain cases to trial, to not give good offers on certain cases, things of that nature. So I felt from the intern perspective that the prosecutors had way more power, way more discretion. And so I felt that's where I wanted to go, that I wanted to go to a position where I actually had a say in how things ended up. I had more power, and I felt that that was the prosecutor for me rather than a public defender or a defense attorney. So out of those positions, being in the courtroom, I say, let me go the DA route. And it's been good.
Gotcha. But you're doing white collar crimes and not the typical what people look at
right.
as far as being.
Right. So so I'm doing white collar crimes now. You're still in the courtroom. Okay. So it's not like civil, white collar crime where it's just a whole bunch of paperwork. Here we're actually, these are felony offenses, whether it's a Ponzi scheme or all the way down to just, check cashing scheme. It's still felony offenses and you're still in the courtroom. Just, no one's bleeding. Right. But, I've been doing that. I've been doing this, like I said, for the past 2 years, but prior to that, 6 years, I was, regular line dep as far as dealing with sex assaults, dealing with, people being hit in the head with a baseball bat, assaults, murders and stuff like that. And I still maintain a regular murder caseload or homicide caseload. And of course, we start off doing, DUIs and misdemeanors and stuff like that in county court. But and here at the Denver DA's office, it's kind of a rotation. They like you to get a feel of everything. And so my stop right now is economic crimes, but it's good. I like economic crimes.
Black Lives Matter or Blue Lives Matter or both?
Black Lives Matter. I have no problem saying that at all, because that's what I believe. And I understand it. I don't have a law enforcement bent, if you will. I'm not, I'm just, it's Black Lives Matter. I don't have any hesitation with that. And I work hand in hand with a lot of people who are on the Blue Lives Matter, All Lives Matter angle, and that just comes with law enforcement work. But I'm lucked out in that I'm in a Democratic office, a heavily Democratic office, the most, outside of, I guess, maybe Boulder, but the most Democratic judicial district in the state. So, we have a lot of Black Lives Matter people, and my boss understands that. But we do have those law enforcement people and ex Denver Police Department people that work in the DA's office. We have a lot of those, and they're with the All Lives Matter and Blue Lives Matter. But it is what it is.
There might be some pushback on whether or not Beth McCann actually believes in Black Lives Matter, on how she chooses not to prosecute some cases. When we look at the protests, when the car, that black SUV tore off into the people in the crosswalk and then circled back around, and there were no charges filed. But I guess that I would question it based upon that and how hard she's been on some cases as it relates to the black defendant on that. But yeah, so that's just me on that. But before I go, hand it off to Stefania, Carter said that you pledge a fraternity up at CSU.
Yeah, I'm a member of a black fraternity, Kappa Alpha Psi.
Oh,
yeah, been a Kappa since '98.
My apologies, or my sympathy.
So okay. So I'm guessing from the hate there, you're probably Alpha or something like that.
There is no something like that. There is Alpha.
Oh, you are Alpha.
There is Alpha. Yes.
See, there you go. How did I know? So that's all good. That's all good. And Hashim, I think you understand though that when you are in a black fraternity, I'm not sure where you went, but there wasn't a whole lot of black people up at CSU. So all the black fraternities, black sororities, we got along. We got along. We would hate on each other, but hate in jest.
Yeah,
and a lot of times we would come out and support each other because we just didn't have the numbers, that a lot of other colleges, and campuses, stuff like that have. So
yeah. Greek life in Colorado is weird.
Right.
Put it mildly. Yeah.
Right. So.
Well, it's a pleasure to meet you. I know that we've never met before, so it's a pleasure to meet you. But I want to circle back to how you felt you had more power in the district attorney's office, and how have you used your power there to help the Black community? Where do you say that you've harnessed most of it, and how have you used it?
We have power, and I don't think it's particular to every office. It really depends on what the political lean is of the office, or the where the leader is aligned, if they're Democrat, Republican. But in the Denver DA's office, even with Mitch Morrissey, who was there before Beth McCann, she's the current DA, we were given a lot of discretion as line prosecutors to do what we felt was right on cases. And I think, myself as a Black prosecutor, when I'm looking at cases and I see things wrong, I think I'm more sensitive to cases where I see where race may be a factor. Now, I will say I have not seen a lot of race cases in Denver, but in general, I try to do what's right, regardless of the race of the person. And I think I have that go ahead from leadership to do that. So when I see a case where I just feel like, you know, something's funny or that the law may have been violated, maybe the stop is not good, instead of doing something like, you know, I feel they may have done in another jurisdiction where they're like, you know, hey, the stop is not good here, or, you know, this person wasn't treated right by the arresting officer, but I'm going to get a plea out of it. You know, some prosecutors might do that. I feel like I have more discretion where it's like, you know what, I'm gonna dump this case.
Okay.
I don't feel it's a good case. I don't feel it's a good look. I'm not going to force some kind of disposition out of it. And Carter will know what I'm talking about. He'll know when, you know, sometimes he has a bad case. He has a case where, you know, the person's charged with a felony and all of a sudden he gets an offer of some kind of low misdemeanor. And it's because the case is bad, right? Or there's something funny going on, or the defendant, his client, wasn't treated with respect, or the body worn camera footage might not be good. I feel like I have the discretion in my position to not try to get the person to plead to anything, but to dismiss the case. Or cases where, you know, I feel like person has made a mistake, you know, and normally I would make them, or the offer would be a felony or something like that. I have the discretion to work out a different type of disposition. Like for instance, Beth, the elected DA, she just was not, I wouldn't say she just started, but she has ramped up the adult diversion program, which, you know, in jurisdictions outside of Denver, I'm not sure they would have done. But, you know, we have people that, you know, up to the age of 30, you know, we try to offer them a diversion, meaning the case gets dismissed at the onset and it's only refiled if they don't satisfy certain conditions of that diversion, you know, which is keeping people from getting a criminal record. Diversion is very common in juvenile, but not in adult. So, you know, that's just one thing. So as a prosecutor, especially in the Denver DA's office, I feel like I have the okay from management. And also, you know, I'm just given that discretion to do what's right on cases.
Okay, let me ask you this. I know that Illinois just announced that their stand and with their stand on cash bonds, and that they are moving to get rid of them. What's your view on getting rid of cash bonds for Colorado?
To be perfectly honest with you, initially when I was, you know, doing county court cases, because bond argument's a huge thing in county court, but I used to be really against bond really against it. Let me rephrase that. I used to be really against releasing people on bond. Okay.
Really?
I was at the other end of the spectrum. But as I have aged in the criminal justice system and as a prosecutor, I have found that I'm now on the other end. I'm more along with, you know, like cities like, I believe it's Baltimore, where it's like, everybody gets a PR bond, right? Everybody gets a bond where they don't have to put up, you know, cash, property, or surety. You know, it's really based upon the safety of the community and whether they will appear. And so now I'm more in that camp, definitely, where I'm feeling like everybody should get a bond. Everybody should get a PR bond, unless you have shown that you are a flight risk or you are a danger to the community. You should get a PR bond.
No matter the crime.
You know what? I think there are exceptions. There's always exceptions. I wouldn't necessarily say it was case by case, but I think that if you're charged with homicide, and you're looking at, you know, maybe life without parole, that, you know, even if you have never been charged with something before, I do believe that, you know, you probably should be held. And, you know, in this state, we have these hearings called proof evident, presumption great, where, you know, if the judge finds that the proof is really not there, or where the standard is not met, a person on a homicide can still get a bond. But otherwise, I believe that if you're charged with a very serious crime or you know, a series of crimes or something like that, you probably should get a cash property surety bond right off the bat. But otherwise, if it's a property crime, if it's something, you know, F4 or below, the presumption should be PR bond.
So with that being said, in getting rid of cash bonds, do you think that leaves too much in the judge's hands to allow their bias to come into play when we're asking for them to release certain people on bond by giving them that out to say, we feel you're a flight risk, we feel you're a danger to society, and placing that mostly on the backs of Blacks and brown people.
Right. And so that's why it has to be statutory, where, if you're charged with these crimes, the presumption is that you will get a PR bond. And the only time it should come into discretion of the judge is if it's on a serious case and you're here and the judge is hearing argument from the people, from the prosecution, asking them to keep the person in. Otherwise, I think that people should get a PR bond.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Did you have some? I had just real quick. I wanted to circle back to, and I'll cut it back over to Hashim. Do defendants, when you were in county court,
Right.
would Black defendants look at you differently than as a Black district attorney than they would white district attorneys? And did you feel like you had a responsibility to those Black defendants?
No, from my personal experience, and I've been doing this for 8 years, I have never had a Black defendant say something bad about me or call me out. I've heard of it happening. I've heard of one time it happening to a colleague of mine. But to me, it's never happened. The only thing that's ever happened is direct opposite, where I've had a defendant stop me and ask me, am I his prosecutor? And he was happy about it, like hoping that he gets me. So that's the only, experience I've had. I've never had anybody negative. If there's anything that's happened as far as, as far as I feel with dealing with my skin color in the courtroom, it's come from defense, actually. It's come from defense, where I feel like, some defense attorneys, will just be looking at me, like looking down at me, or give me you can kind of tell it when you're having a conversation with them, where they're being condescending or where they're being the kind of question, why are you a Black prosecutor? I've got that kind of feeling sometimes from defense attorneys, from public defenders, but
White
never from a Black
attorneys?
defendant. Yes. I have never had a bad experience or felt some kind of racial undertones. Well, of course not, but from a Black attorney. It's always been white defense attorneys.
Yeah, not an attorney, but I have had conversations about the presidential race when Kamala Harris is running. And I was like, I'm kind of nostalgic. I'm kind of supporting Kamala, Black woman that's running to be president. This is before she had dropped out. And a bunch of white folks had the unmitigated gall to be like, well, she's a defense attorney. And, even some, I got to watch my mouth. I was going to go down on this slippery slope. But even some actually said that, she called her a sellout. They had the audacity to call her a sellout because she was a prosecutor, right? Because she was a DA. And that blows my mind. So the audacity of whiteness.
Mm-hmm.
But some people just don't get what prosecutors do, really. And they probably lump Kamala Harris in with, every negative stereotype or trope of a prosecutor. So,
or the historical record of a prosecutor.
Yeah, I was just going to say that office has been abused, is used to dealing out abuse to the
there's more. Yeah, there's more negative than the one-off positives.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, and what is the racial makeup of the district attorney's office in Denver? I really don't know.
Well, I mean, I could tell you how many Black prosecutors there are.
On one hand.
No, two hands. It used to be two hands. Oh, actually, it used to be two hands. It was six.
No. I'm just saying 6,
5.
make it two hands. But
I think our numbers are like 5 or 6 right now. But this time last year we were at 10. We just had one, prosecutor go to the bench, a Black prosecutor go to the bench. Okay. Another one retired. Another one was stolen by Phil Weiser, went to the AG's office, and another one went to the U.S. Attorney's office in Kansas. And that just all happened in the past year during the pandemic. or right before it when they all left or were appointed.
Okay.
Nice.
How many DAs or ADAs are there in the office?
How many ADAs? Well, that's two different positions. So deputy DAs, you have the deputy like myself, and ADAs are the second in commands. But as far as deputy DAs, I think we have 85, I want to say.
All right.
About 85 total,
You're
I think.
1 in 85?
I'm one, yeah.
Of 85. There's
Yeah.
So how many? All right. So how many ADAs are there? And out of those numbers, how many of those are Black?
Okay, so there's three. I believe there's three ADAs, yeah. And one is Black.
Okay.
No.
Is your office indicative of the other offices in the state?
No. we have much better numbers.
Really?
Much better numbers
That's sad.
than but it's always been that way. Denver's always been that way. For Hispanic, even we probably have more Asian prosecutors than other places too. So but yeah, Denver, we have the most Black, Hispanic, and Hispanic prosecutors.
Well,
Go ahead, Carter?
no, I'm just saying, like, I don't know if that's it's good.
The numbers are
better than
small.
Others.
The numbers are small.
Yes, but right, those numbers
Right.
should increase.
Right.
But my question was about pretrial services. Rip off or not?
Pretrial services. Oh, how many people are watching this? I'm trying to damage my ties, but it goes back and forth. Sometimes I'm really frustrated with pretrial services. I feel like they don't do what we really want them to do, but other times, they're on top of it. I guess it really just depends on the pretrial officer. But I'm not going to say that they're a waste or anything like that. I don't know enough about pretrial. They're there. Sometimes you get a really good pretrial officer. They give you a heads up on a lot of stuff, but sometimes you don't.
Yeah, I don't think it's a waste when you look at it as far as a revenue stream to the courts. But I definitely.
But what would you have? What would you have instead of pretrial? What's your suggestion?
Trial.
Just
So, Pierre,
why should someone that's not convicted kick out all this type of money before there's a conviction?
Right. I see what you're saying. And I wish I could have more information, but I'm in a disadvantage here.
No, I
don't know how much they pay. I know that defendants have to pay for like GPS, things of that nature.
So you should know
certain UAs.
how it can damage a family by how much it costs, how much more money they're coming out of their pockets for this type of service. How much is it, Hashim? Do you know?
I have no idea, but listen, if it's a quarter, that's 50 cents too much.
Yeah.
Right. And it's simply because there is no conviction there. So why is that expense being placed upon someone before a conviction?
I'm struggling over here.
Some clients.
I think everybody
here.
should have bond.
Yeah,
I think everybody should get PR bonds, and free trial is an abomination.
Okay, all right. Talk to the people.
Make sure we highlight that. No confusion.
Right. Well, it's a trade-off, Shane, because it's a trade-off, right? Because if we're going to put you on a PR bond, if you're just going to give us your word, you're going to show up, though. We want to monitor you, right? Or we want to know or have you check in.
But you're taking it on.
And if you're charged with a DUI, we want you taking your UAs, right? We want you to do stuff like that related to the charge.
No, absolutely not. Because if there's no conviction, I'm not guilty of a DUI. I'm not guilty of anything to require that. So why?
Right.
Furthermore, people like to talk. We are social beings. And a stupid ass utterance. Oh man, a stupid utterance. Mark that, Marcus, at the time, Mark. A stupid utterance can be done, and then the person is like messed up. They might have been silent in front of the police, built this rapport in their pretrial service type of thing, and boom. I feel the DA, since they are funded by the people, they better earn their money.
But you're taking it. But like
So
you
why?
said,
Cardi, why?
real quick, if we're talking about we're taking in somebody's word that they're going to come back. The reality of the most of the cases that come in to the DA's office, you're taking it on the word of a police officer that this act actually happened, or a witness that this act actually happened. How come one word is better than the other one in the exact same situation?
It was two different words, Carter. You just blended it together. One is an allegation of a crime, and one is just a promise to appear. Like, you know.
So you would think there'd be a higher burden
From
on
allegations.
the other one.
You guys are really wanting to die on a pretrial bridge.
No,
I say burn up the entire bridge.
If they're saying, hey, pretrial is necessary because we're letting you guys out, when we normally would have required a cash property surety bond, but instead we're just going to say check in with pretrial. I don't know. I don't know if that. I think that trade is. I think a lot of people will take that trade.
So instead of paying your money for bond, you pay the money for pretrial.
I don't know how much they pay for pretrial. To
Whether
be honest,
it's anything,
if they don't have to submit to monitoring. I don't know if there's a monthly fee or anything like that. I don't know enough about pretrial.
But I will say again, I believe
Carter probably knows more about pretrial.
Is an abomination, and everybody should be released on a PR bond. However, I believe Denver is one of the more progressive places regarding pretrial and people getting out on $1 bonds. I think Denver, I work out in the 18th along with Marcus. They do not have some of the progressive tendencies that the second district has. But once again, everybody should get a PR bond.
I think we're all in agreement on that one.
Yes, we're in agreement.
Pretrial is a little stickier.
Well, I think what I wanted to know was you've been practicing you practiced in the 18th, and you've been in front of judges in the 18th. And I believe one of your friends just became a judge out in the 18th.
No, I practiced in the second.
But you, when we practiced,
yeah, I interned. Yes, we were in the 18th.
Can you tell the difference just practicing in front of judges or in the 18th versus judges that you're now practicing in front of in the second? Is there a difference, or do you even remember if there was a difference?
I don't remember a difference. I remember Judge Cross in the 18th. He was in Littleton, and I remember him being pretty fair, pretty hip, I guess, if you will. But there's not much of a difference at all that I can see.
And we'll never get a direct answer on, do you believe judges treat you differently because you're a Black attorney? Or better yet, do you believe judges have treated other attorneys differently based on the color of their skin?
I don't think so. Again, you got to remember, we're in a Democratic district. So there's not a lot of, I don't think there's a lot of Republican judges appointed to the bench unless they were, appointed by Republican governors. Because, different judges are appointed by different positions. So the governor appoints district court judges. So if the governor is Republican, he's going to appoint Republican leaning judges, even in a Democratic district. But in the county court level, it's the mayor, and the mayor of Denver has been Democratic for as long as I could think. So the bench is it's the most diverse bench, I would assume, and it's pretty Democratic leaning. But I haven't experienced or heard stories of in the second judicial district of Black attorneys being treated differently.
I mean, wouldn't that premise be that because they're a Democrat that they don't have bias? Like, I mean,
no, I see what you're saying. I'm kind of making kind of like a sort of a parallel to it. Like if you're Democratic, there's not the discrimination, but I'm saying from my experience, I just haven't seen it.
I got you.
I haven't seen it, and I don't know. And I'm in district court now, so we have judges who were appointed by Republicans and Democrats at the district court level, and I haven't seen it.
Got you.
I haven't heard it.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Say that again.
And I said, I haven't heard it from any of my colleagues or anything like that.
Okay, cool. There was a question that we got from one of our viewers. It says, how is the DA's office talking about prison reform? Or is that even coming up in the office?
Prison reform in what context? As far as revisiting sentences or changing the sentencing guidelines, or in what context?
Both.
Yes.
Offering deals, offering better deals that are, worth it.
I know that we are revisiting our habitual guidelines, and habitual filings are, when a person, it's sort of like 3 strikes, where after you've committed a certain number of felonies and a certain type of felonies, your case can be evaluated for a filing of habitual charges, which will double or triple the sentence. And our office is looking at that as far as whether we want to I wonder what conditions we'll be filing habitual charges. So I know we're doing reform in that context, which would mean lower sentences on people who we would normally have offered stiffer sentences. And I also know that, we get reviews, we get people who are appealing the sentences all the time. And our office looks at reviews, all the time. But as far as prison reform itself, we're separate from that. The DA's office doesn't have a lot to do with what's going on at prisons. We only have, something to say at the initial sentence and maybe agreeing to a lower sentence based on appeal or reconsideration or something of that. We can, do a resentencing or agree to a lower sentence. That's our say, but that's about the extent of it as far as prison reform.
Yeah, I dig it. Yeah, and I guess it wasn't really a question about the reform of the treatment of prisoners, because that's completely out of the hands of the DA. But the DA's office, and I guess this would be Beth leading her weight or allowing you all to speak freely about it. But the voices of influence can always matter and weigh in when it comes to how we rewrite laws, how we sentence, and how the whole prison industrial complex completely. If we have DAs that are saying, yeah, we need to change the prison industry, then that has a better voice than just the average person saying we need to change the prison industry.
Right. And I believe that Beth McCann, the elected DA in the Second Judicial District, I believe she's a reformist. I believe she's on board with a lot of things as far as changing the criminal justice system. So
yeah, she is at a glacial pace. She's on board.
Here's one thing I'll say. I don't think people really understand that change is slow. Even when you try to speed it up, these types of things just, don't happen unfortunately, just don't happen overnight. So it may look like things are really slow, but I do know that the elected Beth is working on things. She is working on things, but sometimes things just can't get done as soon as we want.
We talked about there's some familiarity in Greek life, and I believe the poem Tools.
You guys don't have to share now.
Yeah.
So whenever I hear that change is slow, I'm like, that's an excuse. Yeah. And why is it slow?
Mm-hmm. Because we accepted that.
Because when we look at something like it's 9/11, change came really quick. Mm-hmm. Really quick, change came, and that affected the Constitution and how things are prosecuted.
Right. Agreed.
Right. But as far as criminal justice reform,
so it can get bad fast. It just can't get good fast.
Yeah, but there's also, you will have to admit that there's more than just the DA's office, right? We need the help of the legislature. You need the help of a lot of these police departments and the police unions.
But you have to use the power of
we can't just say
in your hand. Sentence recommendations, plea bargaining.
Right. And so, yes, our office, I think, is working on those things as far as what we can do as DAs.
I think a better question is, how are you using your voice? in that context? How are you, as a deputy district attorney in the Second Judicial District, how are you using your voice to make that change?
Good question. How am I using my voice? Well, I do believe that I have a good relationship with the DA, with Beth, and that she does listen to me when I take things to her. So my voice is kind of muted, but that's a tough question. I know that personally, I try to do what I can, and I try to get others to follow. Whether it's making that much of a difference, like it's like that metaphor, when the guy's walking on the beach and he's throwing the seashells or the crabs back into the ocean, and he's picking up that one. I feel like I'm picking up that one and saying, hey, it matters to this one. So, personally, I'm trying to do what I can as a deputy district attorney to, affect change. And I'm also trying to get people on board with that, and also taking ideas to the elected, to Beth, that I feel. And these are things that I would not have taken to her before George Floyd, to be honest, but that was a catalyst. And I think that, I have made, I think I'm known in the office as a person who's trying to do things different and try to look at cases differently, and also put in, just effectuate change in the office, I should say.
We kind of touched on Black Lives Matter at the beginning. What changes have you seen in your office since George Floyd and the summer of 2020? I mean, that had to hit you guys like a bomb. Denver was being protested on a regular basis. What change have you seen, or what change have you asked for?
I don't want to get into particulars because, some things are just not known out there, but I have, and let me just say this. We've had a lot of focus groups put together, and a lot of times groups, they get together, they talk and everything like that, and nothing comes of it, right? It starts and ends at the conversation. The Denver DA's office, we have, groups are put together, and there have been, suggestions put toward leadership and stuff. And I think you guys can expect to hear some good things as far as criminal justice reform and changes and being made at the Denver DA's office. I think you guys are going to be hearing some stuff this year. So we'll say that. So we did take action.
How do you feel since the insurrection? Do you feel like that's created more tension in the office between the work that you have to do with the police officers and the investigators?
One of, the byproducts of the pandemic is that we don't see each other. We're not rubbing elbows, right? We have people with Blue Lives Matter, stickers or whatever outside their office. We're not going into the office that much. It's not like you're gonna, have a conversation, some kind of uncomfortable conversation, because we really don't see each other. And our dealings with DPD is really, via WebEx and phone calls and Zoom. So we haven't had those conversations really, to be honest. Nothing has changed since January 6th.
Got you. So you made a comment that you felt comfortable taking things to District Attorney McCann after the George Floyd incident.
It was like that before too.
Okay. All right. I was just going to clarify. Like if Floyd, that was only a year ago, right? And not even a full year ago.
No, it was like that, but it's been like that since 2016 or 2017 when she was elected. Okay.
And she's pretty receptive to that?
Yeah, and she's receptive to defense attorneys too. Defense attorneys call her, email her all the time also. So she has an open door policy, and it's an actual open door policy.
Got you. And in the same vein of the George Floyd protests, we had a question from Amelia Elizabeth asking, what do you think about the DA's offices who are bringing charges against Black Lives Matter protesters?
I don't know about the individual cases.
Well, there was so recently, this past summer, there was a protest march that was done from Aurora City Hall to District 1, Aurora District 1 police office off of north of Colfax, right? So it went to the 17th and the 18th Judicial District. They started at one, went to the other. George Brockler, former DA, decided to charge some of the protesters in the 18th, and the good Democrat DA, Dave Young, decided to charge some of the protesters as well, too.
Right. And you're asking me about that?
Yeah.
I know nothing about that.
Okay.
And
all right, let's get on the news,
I know nothing. I know nothing. Here,
I dig it.
Yeah, listen. This past year, a lot of people, there's been a lot of murders. For instance, there's been a lot of murders in Denver, right? And people, most of the time when I find out about it, I find out about it from my wife. I just don't, anytime something happens, I'm afraid to say as far as somebody getting arrested and charged. A lot of times, unless it's my case, I don't know much about it. So I knew nothing about that. Maybe I would, comment if I knew more about it. Or maybe it was
do
a
you
Denver
feel that
incident,
Black Lives Matter protesters should be charged if they're peacefully protesting?
What's your personal opinion?
Should they be charged, or
if they're peacefully protesting?
If they're peacefully protesting, of course not. They shouldn't be charged. But if they are being charged, I would have to look at what the charge is and what the basis of the charge is.
Police officer.
Say that again.
Kidnapping.
They got charged with kidnapping.
So like dragging a police officer from one place to another?
No. And listen, I want to be clear. I respect the fact that you say you don't know about it, right? So I respect that. No heat. I'm coming from that. No, they protested outside of the police headquarters or district headquarters, and they blocked an entrance. And because that entrance was blocked, the police officer weren't allowed to leave, and therefore it's qualifying as kidnapping.
I don't know. I think that sounds more like false imprisonment to me, but I guess they charged it as kidnapping. But
it sounds like the stuff that we need to go put on the grass after this snow melts.
Yeah. I don't.
What would be your opinion about it?
Hashim, I'm not trying to punt here, but I really would. Have to look at the case. I think it's, I understand. I've seen some of the things that have been, charged nationwide during protests, and I think they're ridiculous. But, I don't know the facts or whatever is happening on these different charge cases in Colorado.
I dig it.
That's just got to be a difficult line, right?
What's that?
You're still a black man,
right?
Every day you walk into that courthouse, every day you walk into that district attorney's office, you're a black man, period. So there are outside forces that you have to carry into that district attorney's office that other people don't.
Right. Right.
And and that was my question regarding the vision, that your ability to go and speak to, or at least bring a different perspective to the people in that office. Can you talk to us about that? Can you tell us about at least being in the room to have a different perspective?
Right. Yes. Because it's one thing to be in the room, but you gotta also speak up. And I think I know that I have the confidence to speak up on things. And there is a such thing as a black perspective. Are
they asking for it?
In some instances, yes, to be honest. In some instances, yes, I have been approached in the office to look at something. And I know I'm approached because they want, a person with my background, my demographic, a black person to look at this case. And also, I have also inserted myself into situations where it's like, hey, I wouldn't mind looking at that. So if these type of cases come up or whatever, I wouldn't mind looking at it. So, but because I do know that I bring a different perspective. And also I know from being in the office for 8 years that not all prosecutors think the same. And there's some times where I feel like, colleagues of mine are just totally missing something that's obvious to me. And like I think Kashima had pointed out earlier, we do have Blue Lives Matter people in the office and stuff like that. And I hear their perspectives. I see how, they do things. And I'm just not saying like they're bad people. I'm just saying it's a different perspective. And it'll occur to me that it's different, but it might not occur to someone else.
Gotcha. Do you ever fear that speaking out without being asked or running at a Black awareness in your response to things, that's going to hinder you professionally?
I'm not sure I understand it. So you're saying that by me bringing Blackness, that it might hinder my advancement?
Yeah, from being the guy that always speaks out, the guy that always has something to say, or, like, because you're not, and I understand like Beth's administration is different than Moore's administration was, than Mitch's administration was, and maybe different than what's going to come next, right? But that person, like, I don't know if I'm phrasing it correctly.
No, I see what you're saying, but I think my tact is different, so I don't run into that situation. Most time, if I have a problem with someone, or I think someone did something wrong that may have been racial or whatever, I'll go directly to the person. I'm not the type of person that'll stand up on a chair or something and start yelling, and that's not my way. And most times I'll go just directly to Beth or to one of the assistant DAs. And I'll go to them if I have an issue or something like that. So I don't think that, no, I'm not, I don't think I'm seen as some kind of loud Black person, but I am heard, but I'm heard by the right people, if that makes sense.
Gotcha.
I'm not just,
not so much even loud, just consistently bringing things up or consistently not.
Luckily, it hasn't come to that. Luckily, it hasn't come to that. We haven't had those type of issues.
Gotcha.
And you got to remember, I'm not the only one, folks.
Right. There's 3 others.
But you're one of 6.
Like 5 others.
Right.
5 others. So
it's 5. Yeah. So there's 4 others. Right. Right.
Oh, you know what? That's a good point. How do you get more people of color to become district attorneys?
By doing things like this, by just letting people know that we're here. Letting people know that it's a possibility, and that this is how you make change in the criminal justice system, is that you get more prosecutors, more Black prosecutors, and more prosecutors of color. That you can't. Hashim is shaking his head. You can't change the system how you want it by overloading the system with Black public defenders.
Okay,
maybe that's just my opinion.
All right,
but
so here's this. We agree that ISIS, the Taliban, Al Qaeda, horrible organizations.
Right.
Do we change them from the inside? It's like, if you think they're bad, go join ISIS, Al Qaeda, and these organizations, and you change them from the inside.
That's a good point.
Hashim, I know you are not equating the prosecutor's office with ISIS.
I am.
With ISIS and Taliban.
If I'm not doing it for me, I'm doing it for my ancestors. If I'm not doing it for my ancestors, I'm doing it for some who have gotten raw deals and are locked up.
Yes.
Right.
Sometimes you have to be able to.
So Hashim, I'll tell you, in this case, you change it from the inside. You change it from the inside. You change it by upping the numbers. You don't change it by standing on the outside and yelling. You got to come inside. You got to become a prosecutor. And then, and I don't know if you know this or not, Hashim, but most judges used to be prosecutors.
And that's the problem.
Used to be city attorneys.
That's the problem.
Well, that means that by upping the number of prosecutors, of Black prosecutors and prosecutors of color,
we get more Black judges.
Exactly.
Clarence Thomas.
Eventually, you get more. I don't think, was Clarence Thomas ever a prosecutor? I don't know much about Clarence.
But why can't some of our judges come from defense
I don't
attorneys?
concern myself with Clarence Thomas.
No, he's not. He wasn't. But my thing is, that's not it. You can't say we inundate a system that is built upon white supremacy with non-white people and expect for it to change, understanding that there's basically a traditional path of 2 levels of vetting that you go through, right? There's college and there's law school and all these conditioning factors. And to go along for the DA side for those conditioning factors, there's some type of assimilation or some type of mimicking that's done with the natural biases that we face. I deal with anti-Blackness within myself on a daily basis. And I call this out in people. But I've been so inundated with it that I have to make that type of thing. So for me to go along on the path of to be a DA and be like, this is how change is done. Yes. And that is why change is so slow.
But I mean, and this is going to go to both you guys. This is going to go to both. Piggybacking on Shane.
Get off my back. No.
I'm carrying you. Piggybacking on Shane.
You do it right though.
Why do people of color become public defenders instead of prosecutors if that is where the change is at?
You asking Shane?
You. That's an interesting question, especially since most prosecutors are the ones that are advancing to the bench. Why is that?
I think that, I think Carter can answer this question too. But I think there is an expectation that if you're Black and you go to law school, that you will do something for your people. You will not come out and you will not go into corporate America. You won't go into become an intellectual property attorney. I believe that there's some kind of expectation that just goes with, being a Black law school student, that you'll at least give the public defender a shot, if not just for the idea of it, the concept of it, of defending the people, and in turn defending your people who are overrepresented as criminal defendants. So, I feel like that's where I had to go when I was looking for internships, that I had to go look at the public defender's office. I felt that it had a lot to do with my community and my skin color, that's what Black people do. If you want to use your law degree, right, that otherwise it'll be looked at as, you're wasting it. You're not trying to help out your community. So at least have to give it a shot. And so that's why I ended up there, because I'm thinking about Johnny Cochran, things of that nature, things about being a great orator and getting out there and defending your people and defending, people who need defense. And I think Johnny Cochran was even a former prosecutor. So that's how I ended up at the public defender's office. But as I said earlier, I wanted to be a person that could actually have a say. So Hashim may be shaking his head, but I'm shaking my head. Prosecutors we'll be able to get the change that we as a people want.
I dig it, and I think it's a mixture of both. But I'm shaking my head because you used another flawed example. Because Johnny Cochran was a Kappa as well, so you know he's like Thurgood Marshall or somebody. You know what I'm saying? Like, but no. In all seriousness,
it's not my fault that the Kappas run things. It's not my fault.
Oh, here we go.
You know what else runs? Diarrhea.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
But nonetheless,
machine.
Serious, in all seriousness, I really feel like it's both, right? I because the system is set up like that, the public defender's job could be made harder or less hard depending upon the district attorney that they're going up against, right? But I'm looking like if I went to law school and I decided to go to the district attorney route, how long would I have my job with my mindset, understanding that people need to be prosecuted, right? Like, I am not an abolitionist in this sense. Like, no, I am definitely a restructuring type of mindset person, reconstruction person. But at the same time, I know some district attorneys who happen to look Black, right? I call them the lowercase b Blacks versus the capital B Blacks. And it's like, no, they're just used as that token of our office is diverse. Like, I used to get into it, verbal jousting with George Brockler on this. And I'm like, George, what good does it do for you to try to bring in DAs when you have the bloody 18th as your reputation for your office and you're known for treating things with a hammer, right? So therefore, I think that Black district attorneys can then be used just as a guise of we're making change.
That's
you got to make sure you go to the right office, right, Ashim? You got to go to the right office.
And I got to commit my crime in the right office, I got to go work in the right office. But that means So that means that the system is not changing. It's only good in one spot if we're supposed to believe that it's theoretically good.
Yeah, you're right. The system may not change as a whole, but it might change in your particular office.
I think this is where your voice is definitely needed. You're in that district attorney's office. You're in there, and you said that you only give your
Define is on my side.
Hold on. Finish up, Stefani. I'm sorry.
No, you got to. I think we would like to see more of you injecting more of the Black experience into more of that office than ever before, because there's only a representation of 6 of you in there. And so, 5. Excuse me.
It took 6. 2 hands.
At 6.
It used to be 6.
No,
It
it's 10. It used to be
It used to be
10
10.
down to 6.
It's 6.
It used to be 10. Yeah.
What is it now?
6.
You can't argue with another number.
All the more reason to use your voice. That's all the more reason to use your voice and to be loud and boisterous, like Hashim would be when he finishes his law degree.
All right.
I'm going to work for tobacco, baby.
Oh,
Take the money.
All right. We're getting a wrap up segment. I just want to make that one comment that I don't know if you guys saw that. The Colorado public defender system is overwhelmingly white as well. I just want to make sure.
right.
After all of that, I know everybody who we went to school with. I don't think any of them are left at the Colorado public defender system. But that being said, wow, awesome. We had a great discussion. Isam, I need you to give us your dope Black thoughts. We can put that out there for you, and then we're going to wrap it up.
My dope Black thoughts. I wasn't given a heads up. What do you want me to talk about? I know it's called dope Black thoughts.
As the great poet Bishop
your-
T.D. Jake says, if you stay ready,
You got to get ready.
This might be an alpha thing that we practice. I don't know.
Here's my Black thoughts. Hey, everyone, don't listen to Hashim. Come to the DA's office. We need more prosecutors. We need more Black prosecutors. We need more people who could look at cases through a different lens. We need people who can effectuate change from the inside, people who can look at the laws, how they are applied, and things of that nature, and make things change so we don't have a repeat of George Floyd of 2020. We don't have a repeat of a lot of these different things that have happened the past few years where Black and brown people have been the victims. Everybody knows that the DA's office, that prosecutors have quite a say. They have quite a lot of power. So we need more Black prosecutors. We need more Hispanic prosecutors of color, in order for us to change the outcomes. And so instead of complaining about things, we'll be able to change things. So come to law school, look at the Denver DA's office, look at other DA's office, look up the National Black Prosecutors Association. But we need more Black prosecutors. Thanks for tuning in.
Sunshine and diversity.
There you go.
That. He said, thanks for tuning in.
A-D-D-I-C-T-E-D. What is love? It's a drug. Let it rotate, then get back in it. Calling me an Uber just to get back to you. Hit the gas shot like fate, I send it. Is it really worth the wait? I don't get it. Divide and gravitate. Taste that wet emoji got me higher out of space.